secularism have been unraveling, and with the advent of the Modi government into power finally, without a coalition, the agenda of Hindutva came center stage and became very overt. जो पहले कोवर्ट था, छुपा हुआ था, वो एकदम से Modi has been implementing with pride and resonance and very overtly, and the world, it's there for the world to see. So, क्या है हिंदुत्व की policies? Why should we be concerned about it? It's कई aspects हिंदुत्व के ऐसे हैं which really impact Indian society itself. For example, if you look at the hierarchy of the caste system, that's an issue for the Indian society, especially when you see, and we saw, for example, many incidents in Bihar where the lower caste Hindus were murdered because they used a water pump which should not have been used except by the Brahmins. So there, at one level, Hindutva impacts Indian society itself. There's a rigid caste system that to date prevails in India, that has not been despite all the laws at the center that the Indian state may have evolved, the creed of Hindutva in the Hindu caste system is very much alive, and we see that in the constant violence that is used against the lower caste Hindus by the Brahmins. But in another way also, it impacts beyond the borders. How does it do that? It does so because it impacts its minorities. We shouldn't forget that when we talk of India's minorities, it's not just Muslims. There's a big Christian minority that has been subjected to violence by the Hindutva brigade. You can't forget some years back when an Australian Christian missionary was burnt to death with his two boys, his two children in India. And there has been violence against the Christians. So the Hindutva creed impacts the world because we see minorities being abused at the hands of an extremist Hindu doctrine. Of course, we see Sikhs have been targeted. Indira Gandhi's Golden Temple operation was a direct attack on the Sikh population, and she paid for it with her life, of course. And for us, of course, in Pakistan, the major concern is over the treatment of Muslims in India. We see killings of Muslims over the beef issue. We see Muslims being targeted, and of course I want to go back to the point जो मैंने पहले कहा था कि the secularism of India began unraveling very early on, and of course one of the clear reflections of that was the violence over the Babri Masjid, and that issue still remains a hotbed, has not been resolved. But for Pakistan, as we have seen in the Pulwama incident, the Hindutva creed affects us most directly because of what happens in Indian occupied Kashmir. India has used all manner of state repression, state terrorism, and India actually has communalized the issue and made the Kashmir issue a Muslim-Hindu issue. They have tried to give it a color of religion, whereas the issue of Kashmir is about the right of all Kashmiris to self-determination. And India is trying to convert that into more of a communal issue, which it is not. And of course, its attempts now, there are rumors that it's going to give statehood to Jammu, divide the state of Jammu and Kashmir, which would of course be against UN resolutions, because remember, Kashmir is a dispute not just between India and Pakistan, it's on the agenda of the UN Security Council, so it's an international dispute. And if India tries to change the political character or the geographical character of the disputed territory, then that is in direct violation of UN Security Council resolutions. Whether the world will take note of that or not is another issue. But the other main problem for us now is that not only is India maybe going to change the physical status of Jammu and Kashmir, but they're also trying to change the demographics of the state of Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, by trying to change Article 35A, I think it is in the Constitution, whereby now anybody from anywhere in India would be able to buy properties and so on if this article was changed. So that means that India wants non-Kashmiris coming in so that the demography of Kashmir is altered, and that they assume at some day, maybe the Indians are finally realizing that they will at some stage have to have a referendum or a plebiscite on the future of Kashmir. So they're taking care of it by trying to change the demographics, and also by altering the actual nature of the state of Kashmir by separating it from Jammu. So present crisis for us is a reflection of the rising tide of Hindutva, and we have seen that despite the fact that all evidence points to the fact that the suicide bomber was a local Kashmiri boy who had been abused by Indian security forces, despite the fact that it is in front of the world that Indian security forces have been committing human rights abuses, spreading state terrorism by innocent Kashmiri young men are tied to jeeps, Indian security jeeps, and pulled along the streets. Children have died or been maimed because of pellet guns. It's all before the world, and therefore for the world to turn a blind eye reflects the hypocrisy of those countries that talk about human rights, that talk about democracy, that talk about humanitarian values. Suddenly all those values disappear when they come and support India, despite very apparent Indian state terrorism that has been documented not by Pakistan but by international humanitarian organizations, that has now been documented in the UN High Commissioner's report on the Kashmir issue, which clearly shows India's abuse of human rights, Indian security forces' abuse of humanitarian laws. Despite all that evidence, the world decides that India, for one reason or the other, must be tolerated like the spoilt brat of the international system, allowing it to do as it pleases, when it pleases. And it's the same pattern that we see happening with Palestine and Israel, and the same pattern is repeated here. And I want to point out here कि अगर आप UN Security Council की resolutions देखें, तो जो ईस्ट टिमोर की resolutions हैं और जो कश्मीर की resolutions हैं, absolutely identical, एक ही जैसी हैं. तो ईस्ट टिमोर में तो UN Security Council ने implement कर दिया सारा कुछ, उनको plebiscite भी दे दी. क्या वजह थी? बिकॉज के जो मुखालिफ स्टेट था वो मुसलमान स्टेट था इंडोनेशिया, और इधर जो स्टेट दहशतगर्दी कर रहा है कश्मीर में वो हिंदुस्तान है. दिस सीम्स टू बी द ओनली रीजन. अदरवाइज if you look at UN Security Council resolutions, and I have studied the cases in detail,